Hello everyone, assalamu alaikum. So this is something that we are going to build. Now this is a multilingual app. As you can see, you select your language here. As you do that, it changes the language, including here. We can go back to English like that. So it changes everywhere. You can save it. Well, of course, I saved it in different language. So you can do your login or things like that. But do remember, after signing in, we are going to switch back to English language. Now here, as you see, this is not English language, it's my native language. And over here we do have settings, so we'll go to settings. And here we can change lang to English and we'll save it. And we'll come back and we do see that change everything back to English. So this is something that we are going to build right now. Okay, now to be able to do that, first we need to go ahead and install two plugins. So we're going to use Getx to do that. So we're going to look for pubspec.yml file over here. And over here we are going to install, say, Getx or Get actually. And the other one we need, that's a shared preference, this one. With this two, would be good to go. Now Getx package has not only state management and routing, it also supports localization, which means you could do multiple languages in one app. So Getx is always one of the best options for developing app right after block. So make sure you click on this and then install it. Okay. Now this would be a simple project, so the project itself should not be difficult in terms of structure. Anyway, so here I'm going to create a folder and I'll just simply call it screens over here. And here we do a screen and we'll call it splash screen. So we'll have splash screen dart. Okay, so over here we are going to create a stateful class and we'll call it splash screen. Well, so here is a splash screen file and it's a stateful class. And over here, because we are going to do animation and we have this sticker provider state maxin, otherwise we'll get error. We won't be able to do that. And we have defined an animation variable and animation controller variable, and as well as over here this init state, and inside init state actually we first create controller variable and we say that okay, the animation should continue for 2 seconds and after it just should go forward, which also means that just happen once. Okay, and this is the type of animation we want. All right, and after that we'll have a timer. Now after 3 seconds later we'll see that we see this should be printed. Now in future we're gonna replace this section with route over here. We don't have the route ready anyway, so this init state, this function method over here initialize the controller and the animation based on the controller, and 3 seconds later it triggers something. And once we are on the page actually, so we see this section over here, so we'd be saying a logo, well, 2 sections, so logo 1, logo 2 together. And at the same time we set this global key to avoid some unexpected errors. Anyway, so inside this skill transition we have set our animation, like the animation variable, the one that we created over here at the top based on this controller. Beautiful. Okay, now here we do see that we have some assets, so let's go ahead and take a look at the asset folder. Now first thing, we do have to see our pubspec.yml file. Over here we are saying our assets are in this kind of folder, so images are in img folder, and we'll also have assets for language. Now our languages are over here. First take a look at the img folder, so we'll have 2 logos. Okay, and together we do animation as we do boot up our app, and inside this ss folder we do have this language. Now this is English language, and this is another language, which is my native language, which is called Bangla. But anyway, so these are the two language options our app will have, and we'll be able to switch between those two languages, and would also be able to save them for future, so that whenever a user reboots the app, it stays there. So from now on, everything we are going to do is going to be based on this too. Now, anyway, before we go ahead and do that, so first let me remove this, and inside this, instead of keeping this, let's remove everything. And for now, over here we do splash screen. Okay, great. Now I'll select another emulator, which would be Android. So, well, yeah, this is what we see over here, and yeah, that's all. Now, of course, we also see that it printed over here timer, the one we wanted to see in our splash screen once the app runs. Okay, all right. But anyway, soon we are going to redirect it to a new route. Now, whatever we do, they have to be based on these two languages. Okay, so we are going to deal with languages. So the first thing we want to do over here, create another folder, and we'll call it model. And inside this, we'll have a new dart file, and we'll call it language model.dart. Okay, now inside this, we are going to have this model. Now here, actually, if we want to do localization or internationalization in Flutter, which also means that using multiple language support, you have to have at least few things: language name, language code, country code. And I think actually the last two are the most important, and first two are optional. Why? Because this two, actually we have to save something called local. So framework has local, like Flutter or any other popular framework. They support multi-language, and they also have a function or a class which is called local. Now in local, actually we save language code and country code. And every time you change something about your language, like you want to switch languages, then you have to change them and set them in the local. So very soon we'll see how to work with local and the language model together. Anyway, so with this, we are almost done with the language model setup. Next, we are going to create another folder, and we'll call it utils. And inside this, we'll have a new file, and we'll call it appconstants.dart. So here is our app constant file, and here we have this country code and language code. Now you may ask why we have this on. Well, we want to save them in the local storage. Remember previously we have installed shared preferences. So because of that one, we need them because we need the string as a key. And this is what actually we have worked so far. So here we are going to create a list using this language model. So as you can see, our list, this is our list, and over here we are creating instance using them. And as we do that, we save them in a variable which is called languages. Now since this is a static member, we'll be able to access this list languages outside of this class using this appconstants.languages, like that. Okay, so anyway, so we just created instance using our language model. And why we do that? Because as I said, that we need to work with the locale. So in the locale, as we save data, actually we need to read them from this list. You really don't want to read directly, I mean, like this or any other way. So create an instance, and because this is a list, so loop through it and use an index to find the country code and language code, like that. So hopefully it makes sense. So now next step, actually we are going to create a new folder, and we'll call it controller. And then inside this, we'll create a new file, and we'll call it language controller.dart. You can name it actually anything you want. A lot of people might call it localization controller. Well, so this is the localization controller, the one that we created, and it extends Getx controller and implements Getx service. The reason is why service, because we want this controller to be in the memory for a long time. Once the app starts, that's because it's going to help us to save the data in the shared preference, and we want this controller to be alive because the user may go back and set the data or change the data, so that's why we need that. Anyway, so right over here we do have this constructor, as you can see. So whenever we inject this in the dependencies, then we'll pass this shared preference object. For now we don't have, so whatever we have here we are keeping that. And in the constructor body, actually you want to do this load current language. Now this is a method that we are going to see very soon, but before that, just now I was talking about locale. So this is the locale that we should know. Now locale, this class is actually directly coming from Dart UI. As you can see, it takes language code and country code, and this is what we were talking early as we are creating this app constants class. So as you see over here, we have this country code and language code. So the locale itself need them. Now, since we created this list, which is called languages, this is the list that we created already. So we can access the language code. Now, this is the one that we set at default. So we are using, for example, over here, index 0, so which refers to English language. Of course, you can set it to 1. If you have more languages, you can set them differently, the way you want. So the idea is, first you have to have this language code and country code, which we have over here and in this list. So we are accessing them in the locale. So this would be our default locale. But of course, for now, we don't see where to set it. Very soon we'll see where and how to set this locale. And we do have some additional variables. So now this one, we'll see that we can change our, like, say for example, over here. So we'd be able to switch between them. So we need to be able to keep the track of the index, so that's why we have. And over here we also have this languages list, just like the one we had early. Now, because we want everything to be accessed from controller from the UI, so over here we'll load the languages one more time. So from the UI, actually would be using this variable. Now this locale would directly we would set in the main.dart file, so we can access them inside from this app constants. It doesn't really matter, but later on the future changes would be happen through this one. So in future, if we want to change this country code, language code, we would be able to use that. Now of course this is a getter for locale, the one we had already, so let me move it up. It would make more sense. Now these two together. So now here we also have a getter for languages. And over here we have this load current language method, so which is over here actually. Now this gets called from the constructor body. Now as you can see over here, now this is pretty simple, straightforward. This part may look scary, but it's not. So over here we also have a locale over here, as you can see. Now this locale, what it does, it tries to read information from our shared preference. If it's not there, actually it takes from the default one. Earlier I said that index 0 refers to the default language. So of course you can set it to anything, it doesn't matter. The same for the country code. If country code is confined, it goes to this app constants, the languages over here. Now, as we said that, because we want to be able to click on them, and as we click, the index changes. So for this reason, we want to loop through them, and in future, when we change, actually, over here, we'll select the index, and wherever we click, that index would be set to that one. And that's why we also have a getter for this selected index. And of course, after that, our languages list, we initialize it to empty list. and load everything from here. And we also let the UI know that, okay, you should call the update method and update your UI. Okay, great. So now with this basic setup, actually, we are a few more steps away to actually see like this. Now, to be able to work on this, we need to come to our folder over here, and inside this screens, we'll actually create a new file and we'll call it language screen.dart. Now inside this, we'd be able to draw an UI like this. So here we'll create a stateless class. From now on, Getx will take care of a lot of the other state management things. And okay, so it's not stateful, we want stateless, this one, okay. And here we'll call it language screen language screen, and inside this, let's import the library. And after this, so we could do scaffold. Okay, now inside the scaffold we'll have body, and here we could do safe area. Inside safe area we'll have child, and inside this, for now, we'll have column, and then we'll have children. So anyway, so here is our language screen, which is a stateless class, and inside this we have scaffold, safe area, and column. And inside the column we have only one child, which is expanded. Then we want to put everything in the center, and as well as because we want to be able to scroll. So we have the scroll bar and the single child scroll view inside this expanded child. And now here we put everything, whatever the content we have, that is as like our logo and things like that, and the basic UI over here inside this column as well, as you can see. Now we do have grid builder. Now we have this grid builder because we want to put two boxes next to each other like this. So with this, we also have some basic setup. So we want aspect ratio 1, which means that we want to have a square, and we just want two elements on the horizontal axis. And we also say item count 2 and things like that, and that's it. Now with this, actually we are one step away to see a screen like this. Now for this reason here, well, inside utils I'll create a new file and I'll call it approutes.dart. And inside this we need to have our routes. For now we don't have routes because what do we have here right now? This is our splash screen, but after 3 seconds later we want to go to a new screen. So here we created this route helper class, and we have initial route and route for splash screen, and then we also want to go to language screen like that. Now, well, over here initial route in future will refer, so in future initial route, this one will refer to home screen, which we don't have yet, but we'll create one. But so far inside this get page list, we have this get page for splash screen, and then we also have for language screen. And for now we just say splash screen. Of course, in our main.dart, actually we are not using that. So let's find our main.dart and we'll see that how to use a splash screen over here from the routes itself. Now the first thing we want to do, we want to get GetMaterialApp over here. Now let's import Getx at the top. So here we would import get, okay, like this. Now over here we need to set up our routes. So to be able to do that, let's remove this home property, and right after this let's do like that. So let's import our route helper class, which is this one, route helper. And since all the members are static, so we can directly access them using the class. So definitely the first one refers to this get splash route. Eventually it refers to this one over here, right? So now we get stuck over here, which is the splash screen, and from there we want to go this screen. And how to do that? Now you see that here I have this timer, so we don't want to that one. We want something like this. Yes, just like this. And now we do see that we have a bit of issues, so let's import libraries at the top. The first thing you want to do is import get package, and as well as over here let's import that one. And we do see that we also have a bit of issues, so let's do this, and the error is gone. So yeah, so this is a callback function that gets called automatically right after 3 seconds, and it would take us to the language route page. Now we know that language route actually takes us to the language screen, we know that, and if it does, we would be seeing things like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and yeah, see this, if it takes us to the language page or not. Yes, it did. Now we do see that we have the basic things ready. For example, we do see that this two logos, this one and that one over there, as well as this text, and we also have sized box. Actually there are two sized box, but because right now it doesn't have any color, so we don't see this anyway. And one thing first we could do, see if we can set up this background color. So we would do colors dot white, and let's save it, and it looks much better. And as well as over here, this instead of this sized box, actually we can use container, and let's see, yes. And for now over here we could do color, so container color. Okay, now we do see that we should have index, right? So over here index, well, we just have two items, so we can have like index 0. If it is index 0, then we do colors dot red. Okay, otherwise we do colors dot blue, just like that. And let's see, we do have a bit of cannot be assigned. Okay, now the error is gone. Okay, so that's what we see currently, which means that these two sections are working. Well, now this is the time actually we go and set our locale over here inside this main file, main.dart file, and here we'd set the locales like this. So we set locales actually from the very beginning inside this GetMaterialApp. Now we do have some issues, and we'll take care of them slowly one by one. Let's go ahead and do that. Now here we do see that we have this messages and languages problem. Now here we also need a localization controller or language controller. We can name it anything we want, and how to get this instance. Now here we are going to wrap this get material around a widget, or actually just wrap it around get builder. And if we do that, we'd be able to access localization controller, the one that we created. Now I'm going to put get builder right over here. We'll do return like this, and right after this we'll have this semicolon brackets, and then let's import this language controller, and we should be good to go. And I guess we need one more of this bracket. Now we still have problem, this messages class, and what to do with that. Before we go ahead, and one more thing, one more time, is that because we want this to be available from the very beginning, so that's why we wrap our GetMaterialApp using this localization controller. And if we can do that, you see that we can access this locale object from here, like so. This is the locale object that we are accessing because we created a getter for this one. And as well as we also have fallback locale. Now if this is not found, this is the fallback one. Now of course in our case this and this, they are the same one, but you can choose a different one to do. No problem with that one. Let's go ahead and create a messages class, and we'll do that inside this utils over here, and we'll just simply call it messages.dart. And over here we'll have this. Now this messages class extends a translation class, and which is actually coming from Getx. So let's import get, and the error should be gone. Now this messages class has a getter over here, as you can see, case, and it returns the languages object over here, and which is a map type object. Okay, so which also means that there is map inside map, and this is required for localization in Flutter if you use Getx, use block or other, or actually not really block, I mean other plugins that also does localization, so they might be different. So you have to have one. It tells us that, okay, how to store the languages that are all together in this device, because if you just take a look, this is simple map format, right? Which means key and value, q and value, but we have two of this file, one for bn.json and there is en.json. So in future, very soon, we'll also see we combine them together. So that's actually gets saved in this translation class. I wouldn't say that gets saved, but the Getx has to know from, or Flutter has to know from Getx, that how you are storing all of your languages in a node, which and what format. So that's my understanding, because there isn't much documentation about it actually. Anyway, so the idea is we have this two JSON files. So all together, how you put them together, how you combine them in a certain format, and that's what is told in this messages class. Anyway, so now if you come over here, the error should be gone. Even before that, there's another problem. So you need to pass an instance, because here you do see that in the constructor it takes this languages object, which is map strike. So we can be smart, so just copy this one and put it right over here, and let's see. Now we do see we still have this error, and if you see the final variable languages can be assigned because it is potentially unassigned at this moment. Now this is a class, actually this class is getting called, and it's get called, actually we don't want like this. Well, we do have this one, let's see. Well, now actually we don't want to put it here, we want to put it first outside, and then inside this, instead of having it like this, we could do like this. Now in that case, from here we need to send this languages object, and as we do that, that value should be initialized. Now once again, how do you send the value from here, from my app? Now of course we need to add it over here. How to do that? Now this is where dependency injection comes into play. So over here first we can inject our dependencies, but right now we are going to put everything here. So here we'll call it dev.dart. Here is our dev.dart file, and here we do have init method, and we have this shared preference instance, and we load it first. Definitely we get the instance, and then we load it, and once we load it, we send the instance to this localization controller. Remember, localization controller actually takes shared preference instance, which we have seen before, and this is what actually we are doing right now. So yeah, so that's how you send an instance in Getx if you need one. And after that, here we declared a map, and this is the map object that actually get referred over here, and we'll send it to this value as an argument, and it would be caught over here. So they all align together. So from here actually we are going to send map type object, so we'll have map inside a map. Now I have a detailed tutorial about it, how to what is map inside map or nested map and how to read. So you can check out that link below, and I have explained thoroughly this section actually, but that section is dedicated for just to understand what is map inside map and how to load a JSON file from your local device. Anyway, so yeah, we get all the languages list. Remember, inside this we have this languages list, so we can access them, and each of them we take as language model. And do remember, each language model has a language code. If you see that, we have this language code, right? So what will happen here, it will become assets language en.json, assets language bn.json. So this refers to those JSON files, the one we had early. So each time we take one of the JSON file and we save it in a variable, map variable, after decoding. And then as we do that, we create another map variable and we store them inside this map variable one by one. What happens with this is that once you take all this information, like each time it will go through one of this, right? Say for example, it will take all this information, and then for each key there should be value, so it puts in this new JSON. Okay, and in the new JSON, actually when it's done with the first loop, first time in the loop, so it would save information just like en, us, bn, bd format. And this is what actually our localization wants. If you see locale, it takes language code and country code. So what do we do over here? We take from whatever we have from the JSON file, we take all of them, and then we put in this map list. Now remember, for each of them, so when it goes through this, tries to put information in this languages map, this should be the key. So for the first one, it should be en, us. So that should be the key, and for that key all this value would be loaded. Hopefully it makes sense. And then in the second loop, it would get bn.json. It would take all this information and save it in this key, but all those bn.json information from the JSON file, and eventually we return. What do we return? We return something like this, map inside a map. And that's what we are saying, that over here we'll have map inside map, and we're also telling Flutter that our information is coming like map inside map. Hopefully it makes sense. And right after this, we have to actually, right over here, we do have to do the injection. Make sure that your file has correct path if it doesn't get automatically recognized. And over here we have this one. So first we do widgets binding, and we load our dependencies at the top, as you can see. So this is the dependencies that I was talking about. So over here you loaded our shared preference and localization controller, as well as our JSON file. Now we do have this languages, and this is the languages object that we pass to this myapp, and myapp takes that one and initializes that value to this languages variable, and we tell this messages class that our language format is going to be map inside a map, and it should work like that. Now let's go ahead and run it one more time, and we'll see how it goes. How to know that this is working? Well, to be able to know that this is working, actually we can come to this one, and you do see that here we have a default locale. That is the locale that gets set over here first time. So what it does, it takes this, the first one, but in our case maybe we can change it to the second one. Okay, and now we'll see that how it works. So now let's restart our app, and we'll see, but it does look like nothing happened. Now let's come to this okay, let me erase them, and we don't need this. We also didn't need this one. So just come to this languages.screen, and over here we would use the tag tr, which is coming from Getx, and let's say it wants us to import get, so let's do that. Looks like it didn't import. Well, we still have this error. Import package. Let's see. Most probably we can't have this const over here. Now let's restart it. Now it does look like it's working, and over here actually I also changed, instead of const I removed the const and then I added tr, which means translation, and it's the same over here. Well, now in the language controller itself, we have to make another change. So instead of 0 over here we can have 1, and right now we say English, but if we restart now, I think it'll change to a different language. You see that? Yes, it's already a different language. So if we change it to 0 over here, it'll change to English back. So which means that our locale is already working, but now we need to find a way to click on them and change, of course not change from this code directly the way we are doing. So anyway, so I'll put back everything to index 0, which refers to the default settings or default locale. So now we need to work on how to make these boxes clickable and set the locale. Now to be able to do that, actually we are over here, and as you see it does loop through it. So we need to inject not really inject, we need to find our controller over here, this localization controller, and if we can do that, then you'd be able to access the properties like select index, languages, even locale, all of them, and then we'll be able to change on the button click. That's what we want to do. Now to be able to do that, over here inside this screens, we'll create a new file and we'll call it language widget.dart, this one over here. So here we created a stateless widget or class which is called language widget, and we want to send it to the language model localization controller, and we do basic setup of the value in our constructor. And inside this we have this inkwell, and because we want this to be part of this widget and we want them to be clickable. And after this we have this basic setup, and we also have this stack widget. So over here we want to show the language name, yes, and we're going to put everything in the center, and we want to be able to check which of them has been selected, and based on that actually we want to be able to change selection like that. Now with this we would come over here. Now just now we had this section over here, so we'll uncomment that. Okay, now we'll come at the top, and for this column itself we're gonna wrap it around a widget and we'll call it get builder. So let's call it get builder, and right after this get builder should be like this, and inside this we have this localization controller. We need to import that, but before we import, actually instead of doing like this child, we want to return actually the column, and right before it we should have this, otherwise we'll get error. And now let's put the semicolon and import the library, and we should be good to go. So we want our section like this to section to be clickable and change immediately. So that's why we put everything around this get builder, because we want it to be dynamic, reactive, because we are using Getx. All right, and right after this, actually you have to know another thing. We created an instance of our controller. We call it localization controller, and because we did that, So we can come to this bottom over here and we can change them. Now over here we do see let's see what do we need. I think I can go back and check for the error. Okay, right. So first we're gonna remove this, which we don't need, and then I'm gonna put it like this. So here I have this language widget. Let's import that. So what's gonna happen over here? Well, let's see, we do have a bit of issue. Should we? Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, over here what we are doing, so we access this localization controller, and then we also find the language model based on this object. Remember, this is this part of this getter which has a list of language models. So this one, languages, actually saves all the languages in a list. So that means that we'd be able to access them from the list over here based on this to index. Anyway, the languages already only have 2 items, and here we say 2 items, and since this is inside grid builder, it'll start from 0. So the index would be 0 and 1, and each time we also pass localization controller object and the certain index that's being looked through. You already see that it changed automatically and updated automatically on its own. Now, yes, so this is the default one, right? The one that is being used for English, and which means that it's already working. Now let's go ahead and click on that, and now we do see that it's not working. Now there's a reason. If you come to this okay, let me close this one. We don't need this. We also don't need splash screen. We need language widget. So yeah, over here actually we also want to have this method where it says the set language. So this is the default one right now, and this is all coming from our JSON file. But as we click, we want to be able to change and set them. And how to do that? Now to be able to do that, we need to go ahead and create a new method which is called set language. We'll go to our localization controller over here. Right below it, actually we'll create 3 methods. The first one is set language. Now this is the one that should get called, and as it does, it would update the locale in the Getx and the controller itself and save it in the shared preference. So this method saves all local information, actually the one we changed, the code and the language code, and we save them in the shared preferences because next time we want to read them back. And well, we want to get the current index for the selected one, that's why we have. So from UI, actually we'll be calling this one first. So this is our UI. So now let's take a look how it should work. Okay, so over here we have this localization controller. With this, we have access to it, and as we click, we are able to change the index, as well as, of course, first we change the locale information, because each of them gets this one, so they have different index and different language code and country code. So let's restart it one more time, and we'll see how it goes. So let's change it. As you see, the language changes immediately over here and over there. Yeah, and actually it does get saved in the shared preferences directly. So let's see. So it was saved in the shared preferences, so it changed immediately. I mean, our savings has been saved. Okay, now we save it to English and we restart it, and we'll see that it's saved. So it means that our multi-language app is actually working. Anyway, so if you liked and learned something, don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you so much.